You haven't subscribed to the channel yet? Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. The perfume bottle. We met in the most ordinary way possible, riding the elevator in our apartment building. She lived directly above me. It became a running joke between us that she was always on top, but when it came to certain activities, well, let's just say the roles were reversed. Just kidding, of course. From the moment I first saw her, I was captivated. She had this incredible scent, J'adore by Dyer, and luxurious hair that cascaded over her shoulders like a waterfall. Our elevator rides turned from polite nods to shared smiles, and soon enough, we were finding excuses to see each other. Forgotten mail, borrowed sugared, you name it. One evening, as we both reached our doors, she turned to me and said, "You know, it's a shame we live so close but hardly know each other." I grinned. Well, maybe we should change that. And we did. Dinners turned into late-night talks, and late-night talks turned into early morning breakfasts. We didn't rush things, but there was an undeniable spark between us. It wasn't long before she started staying over at my place more often than not. Our lives intertwined seamlessly. Then came the news that would change everything. She was pregnant. I was over the moon. We decided to get married, and since her apartment was larger, we moved in there, my own place. I rented it out to a friend of mine, Mike, a good-looking, charismatic guy who worked from home as a freelance designer. It seemed like a perfect arrangement. I never imagined that decision would come back to haunt me. Life was hectic but fulfilling. Our child was growing fast, and I was determined to provide the best for my family. I took on extra work, juggling 3 jobs at one point. It was exhausting, but every time I saw my wife and child together, it felt worth it. She often praised my hard work, saying things like, "You're our hero, and we appreciate everything you do." One afternoon, Mike came upstairs to drop off some mail that had been mistakenly delivered to his place. I wasn't home, but my wife told me about it later. Mike stopped by today. She mentioned casually over dinner. "He brought up some of your old letters." "That's nice of him," I replied, thinking nothing of it. But then it started happening more frequently. Mike would drop by to return a borrowed item or share some freshly baked cookies. He's just being neighborly, I told myself. After all, he was my friend. One Saturday, with a rare day off, I decided to surprise Mike with some beers and catch up like old times. I knocked on his door, but there was no answer. Figuring he might be out for a bit, I used my spare key, he had given me one in case of emergencies, to let myself in and wait. I wandered into the kitchen to grab a glass of water when something caught my eye on the counter, a bottle of perfume. Not just any perfume, but J'adore by Dyer, the same scent that had first drawn me to my wife. That's odd, I thought aloud. Mike didn't have a girlfriend, at least none that I knew of, and he certainly didn't strike me as the type to wear women's perfume. I picked up the bottle, the familiar fragrance bringing back memories of our early days. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. I snapped a photo of the bottle with my phone, trying to shake off the unease creeping up on me. Maybe there was a simple explanation. Back at home, I searched through our bedroom, bathroom, and even the hall closet where my wife sometimes kept old things. The perfume was nowhere to be found. "Hey, have you seen your J'adore perfume lately?" I asked her casually that evening. She looked up from her book, a slight frown forming. "Oh, I think I ran out and never got around to replacing it." "Why do you ask?" "Just noticed you haven't worn it in a while," I said, forcing a smile. She shrugged. I guess I moved on to other scents. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Was I being paranoid? Mike was my friend, and my wife had never given me any reason to doubt her. But the coincidences were piling up. The next day, I decided to test a theory. "I'll be working late all week," I announced over breakfast. "Big project at the office." She looked at me with concern. "Don't overwork yourself. We miss you when you're not here." "I'll be fine," I assured her. In reality, I left the apartment as usual, but circled back and found a discreet spot where I could see both the entrance to our building and Mike's apartment. I felt ridiculous, like some character in a bad spy movie, but I had to know. The first 2 days, nothing happened. She stayed in, and I began to feel guilty for doubting her. But on the third day, My worst fears were confirmed. Around 8 p.m., I saw her leave our apartment, glancing around nervously before heading downstairs to Mike's place. She was dressed up, a little too nicely for a night in. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched her knock on his door and slip inside. I waited for what felt like an eternity. At midnight, she hadn't returned. That was it. I went back to our apartment, quietly let myself in, and saw that our child was asleep in his room, alone. She had left him unattended to be with Mike. Furious and heartbroken, I packed a bag with essentials for our son and wrote a brief note. I've taken the baby to my mother's. We're done. The next morning, my phone rang incessantly. Calls, texts. She was frantic. I finally answered. "How could you just take him like that?" she cried. "How could you leave him alone to be with Mike?" I retorted. Silence. "I can explain," she began. "I don't want to hear it." I cut her off. "I trusted you. I trusted both of you. Please, let's talk about this," she pleaded. I sighed. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice." Over the next few days, I moved back into my old apartment, after evicting Mike, of course. He had the nerve to act surprised when I confronted him. "It just happened, man," he said, avoiding eye contact. "Get your things and get out," I replied coldly. He tried to apologize, but I was beyond caring. As weeks turned into months, I focused on rebuilding my life. Taking care of my son became my sole purpose. The divorce was messy, but I got full custody. One day, while at the park with my son, I ran into an old friend, Lisa. We chatted, and it felt good to have a normal conversation. "How have you been?" she asked. I hesitated but decided to be honest. "It's been rough. Caught my wife cheating on me with a friend." Her eyes widened. "I'm so sorry." "Thanks," I said, managing a small smile. "But I'm moving forward." "Coffee sometime," she offered. "Yeah," I agreed. "I'd like that." Reader comments. Comment 1, Sarah G89. "Wow, this story hit me right in the feels. The way he discovered the affair through the perfume is both heartbreaking and poetic. I'm glad he's moving on and focusing on his son." Comment 2, Mike the Man. "Man, that's rough. Betrayed by both your wife and your friend? That's a double whammy. Kudos to you for keeping it together for your kid." Comment 3, Lovely Linda. "The little details really make this story stand out. The perfume, the late nights, the unattended child. It all adds up to a compelling narrative. Wishing you all the best." Comment 4, Curious Cat. "I have to admit, I was hooked from the start. The elevator meeting was so romantic, only to have it all crumble. Life can be cruel sometimes." Comment 5, Justice Seeker. "Good on you for kicking them both out of your life. Betrayal like that doesn't deserve second chances. Stay strong." Comment 6, Momuf3. "As a mother, leaving a child alone like that is unforgivable. You did the right thing taking your son with you." Comment 7, Booklover22. "This reads like a novel. Have you considered writing professionally? Your storytelling is captivating." Comment 8, Empathema. "I can't imagine how hard this must have been. Betrayal is one thing, but from two people you trust? Heartbreaking. Glad you're finding happiness again." Comment 9, Life Goes In. "Sometimes the hardest experiences lead us to better places. Meeting Lisa might be the start of something wonderful." Comment 10, Honest Abe. "Dude, you handled this way better than I would have. Props to you for keeping your cool and doing what's best for your kid."